Thank you for joining us. Um, just as an introduction, the UVU Entrepreneurship Institute is a non-academic program that provides free advice and resources to help UVU students start and grow their businesses. You can learn to become a successful entrepreneur, and we can help. Um, We Lift is a UVU Entrepreneurship Institute program that is meant to increase the number and success of women entrepreneurs through a women in business ecosystem that becomes a gathering place where women can lift themselves, their families, their businesses, their communities, and their society. We collaborate with other organizations like Boom Startup that support women entrepreneurs, develop funding sources to achieve long-term sustainability, include students in developing and implementing our progression, and involve, recognize, and support all women in the Utah entrepreneurship community. Tara Spalding, our presenter, is the managing director of Boom Startup Accelerator. Boom Startup is an accelerator and mentorship-driven angel stage investment program for startups. It operates as an online technology-driven accelerator, providing entrepreneurs a custom business plan, including business maturity guidance, investment preparation, and capital structuring relevant to growth and investment strategies, as well as curated marketplace for services. Tara is also the founder of Hen House Ventures, an early stage incubator that helps tech companies rapidly scale when entering massive markets, and is also on the board of trustees for venturecapital.org. Tara is the recipient of the 2020 Utah Business 30 Women to Watch Award. Tara began her high-tech career in Silicon Valley when she taught herself to code software and became the first employee and eventually the VP of marketing at industry leader Sugar CRM. Her Silicon Valley experience included roles as CMO at Groundwork Open Source, VP Marketing at Magnet Systems, and co-founder and CPO at Benchpick. Tara received her bachelor's from University of Colorado Boulder. Thanks, Tara, and we'll turn it over to you.
Megan, thank you so much for the introduction. And more importantly, I'd like to thank UVU for this opportunity to share my excitement and insight that I have on today's topic. I am going to share my screen. If you can just give me a thumbs up that you can see it. Is it working? Okay, wonderful. So today's topic is how pitch competitions can kickstart your startup. Many people know about pitch competitions, but they really don't understand the inner workings. Throughout my career, I have participated in so many different aspects of pitch competitions, and I want to give the opportunity for people to just get a really good, deep understanding as to pitch competitions and why they're so important when you look at the whole startup landscape. I'd like to first start off with a story, and it is from my dear friend and former client, Joni Aoki and Gina Ryan. Those two were co-founders of a company called Layla. In fact, it was a student-created project that came out of the University of Utah because both of them were nurses and both of them were trying to figure out how to conceive children. And so they were having such problems with life, stress, etc., that they came with the idea of coming up with this wonderful solution called Layla. The two of them pulled in Young, who also was a medical person as well. And they figured out that if they created what's called a biotech solution, where there's a device as well as an app on the phone, merging the two together. And in fact, not only can they help themselves, but help out many other women who are working and are still intending to have a baby, yet their schedules as well as self-awareness is just not in the heads of the game. Joni and Gina were fantastic people to work with because they knew that they had a long runway ahead of them when it came to creating this project, from launching it from the university and getting it to be bought in by the general public. In 2019, they applied for a massive pitch opportunity. In fact, it's Silicon Slopes. And this was the first year where Silicon Slopes was offering up to $250,000 in prizes. And of course, the audience are I think at that year was over 20,000 participants, not only in Utah, but also our neighboring states. And this is a photo of Joni making it to the top 10 finalists. And if you'd like to see her actual pitch, which was only 5 minutes long, but I have the link, happy to share it. This was a life-changing moment. And the reason being is that she sharpened her skills as well as presented the whole concept of Layla, which her personal problem all of a sudden got exposure and awareness with tens of thousands of other people. The result, she took third place. But then she continued on a, what I say, pitch competition trail where she entered dozens and dozens of pitch competitions over the course of the year. At this time, she earned $138,000 in non-dilutive support, meaning she didn't have to give equity or take out a line of credit for this money because it's all from the pitch competitions and winning. And it also lends to her validation that in fact she's onto something. Right after the pitch competition at Silicon Slopes, she immediately jumped on a plane later that night and flew to Arizona. And this was the big one that she was very excited about because it was offered by the Arizona academics, and it was specifically targeting biotech and health and wellness. This is the one that she wanted to win because it was right up her alley, and it also gave her entry into a new program that could also help her with her prototype. Layla did win, and they won $25,000 the very next day after Silicon Slopes pitch. And honestly, Layla was the 2019 Startup Darling for biotech. Why am I telling you this? Well, Joni and Gina allowed me to just really hone the pitch competition basics. And by understanding the 5 common questions, you can actually do this as a really important and helpful revenue stream, even before you have a product, even before you have customers. And this in itself can help you in many ways. So let's break into more details. What are pitch competitions? It's a contest. There's a winner and then there's losers. And I know it sounds very harsh and crass, but it certainly is. The winner is recognized and rewarded because they in fact matched criteria that was established. That criteria is very important because it helps narrow entries and to select the different winners. And the competitions are sponsored by entities to leverage and enter into the startup category, usually for the sponsor's advantage. So looking at that sort of aspect is really important. We'll do a deep dive later. Now, the competitions usually have 6 steps. It's pretty universal. Step 1 is that you have to enter the competition itself. And step 2 is that there's a preliminary review where they look at your entry and compare it to all of the other entries. Out of that, they create a finalist group. And the numbers can vary as to how many finalists are in each of the categories. But the finalists are selected and basically are confirmed. And they are then encouraged to do a final presentation. Sometimes the presentations are exactly what was given in the entry. Other times it's not. Just like Joni did on the Silicon Slopes stage, her entry experience was completely different than the 4 minutes that was live on stage, where she gave her presentation and then had a 1-minute live Q&A with the judges who are also prospective investors. This final presentation component is equally as important as the entry component. Once the final presentation is done, then the winner and the prizes are announced and allocated. And the 6th step, which most people don't pay attention to, but is very, very important, it's the feedback. All of the competitions are designed to, in fact, help startups. And most of them do provide feedback as to how the presentation went, how they scored, and also offer further help. So that 6th step usually isn't talked about, but is actually really, really important. So let's go into the who. Who hosts pitch competitions? Classically, we can put them into 5 different categories: municipalities, academics, private entities such as massive companies or in institutions or nonprofits, as well as events such as Silicon Slopes. Pitch event was part of a larger conference, and of course, investors. Upcoming in a few weeks, Venture Fuel Summit is hosted by Tamarack. Tamarack is a Utah investment group, and they are hosting a pitch competition. So there are organizations that are basically leveraging the pitch competition to access. Now, why each of these, or knowing who are creating and sponsoring the event, is really important, because it's more than just the competition. There's an underlying message underneath. For municipalities, it's often because they're trying to improve a local economical impact, either for people or for a region, for basically developing and improving the startup business. Startups comprise of 2/3 of the US economy. And so by creating pitch competitions where ideas start to basically formate and get exposure, it's a great first step of creating economic development. Academics, such as like what UVU does with their pitch competition, it attracts students, and it also immerses students who are in classes to basically really learn and apply what they've learned into their final piece, which is usually the pitch itself. It also helps with the learning experience in providing research. Like Joni Aoki's, they did bench to bedside, so they got to actually work with the health group within the university to start researching what sort of tags do they need for those biometric measures for their device. And so it's a really interesting way that academics can not only develop the person, but also incorporate it into their research as well. Private entities love to sponsor pitch competitions. Did you know that Ford Motors actually has a pitch competition, as well as the Energy Council? So the thing is that private entities can leverage it to find and recruit talent that are thought leaders, as well as get a pulse for emerging innovations that they weren't building themselves. So it's a great symbiotic sort of way to basically build and create stronger industry alliances. Events such as Silicon Slopes, well, it's pretty straightforward. They're looking to attract the audience, right? And they're looking to get startups to participate at the event, as well as get their friends to come to the event, because that often means ticket sales. It's also a great way for events to put their sponsors on stage as judges to give a better blended experience with the sponsorships. So it's not just logos on the wall. And investors, as I previously mentioned about Tamarack's program at the Venture Fuel Summit, it's a great feeder for what we call deal flow. BoomStartup also falls into this category, and that's the entity that I work with. We are an accelerator, and we leverage pitch competitions for us to find new and rising talent for people who want to start building a business from an idea. Now, why are they helpful? There's two buckets. One is for you, the presenter itself, and one is for your startup. What's funny is I read a whole bunch of articles while putting together this presentation, and last statement in several articles was like getting cash and services to support your startup. There are so many other reasons why people found pitch competitions helpful. It's that they sharpen their communication persuasion skills. They hone their presentation and their messaging, and they learn how to match it according to the theme or the topic that the competition is about. It's also a great way for them to get feedback. As much time as you as the entrepreneur puts into the pitch competition, there's 10 times more time put in by the judges in both the preliminary bucket as well as the final bucket, because all of those people are not only reviewing your material, but also material that you're competing against. And these are the people that are going to give you feedback as to how you look and present compared to your competition. So this feedback component is so important. Also, it's a great way for you to grow your network. Even though you may not know the judges know you. They've just spent a lot of time reviewing your material. And so, allow this open door to become an opportunity. And of course, it's a great way to rekindle your passion, especially in the early stages. Startups can be exhausting, confusing, and sometimes even bleak. Well, when you work on this and you have to sell it with your heart and soul, it does rekindle the fire as to why you started it in the beginning. And as for your startup, of course, you're testing the market appeal to see if it's the right sort of fit and intrigue that your company can generate. And with that, it builds your branding and exposure. And it's also a secretive way for you to communicate your ask to the public. Even if you don't make it to the finalists, the judges who are reviewing it, if you have an ask embedded into your pitch, you put in the back of their head, and during that feedback session, they may make a helpful introduction that allows you to flourish your business just one step more. So don't forget the ask. And it also, like Joni and the Layla team, use this as traction that in fact you're onto something. And of course, cash and services. So when should you do them? Well, first off, do not be fooled. Pitch competitions take a lot of time. If you put something together really quickly without having that basis of information really available, likely performance won't be so great because it's not matching up. But if you determine that pitch competitions can in fact be a short to a midterm strategy, then commit to it, like committing to selling to a customer. Make the time and just produce the materials, rehearse, and deliver the presentation as expected. Now, cash and services can also help you propel yourself to the next milestone. And then the sort of deliverables that you can get are non-dilutive cash, meaning you're getting cash without having to promise or give back anything. You'll also get business building services. In Layla's example, they were given several hours from one of the leading law firms, which would have cost them tens of thousands of dollars when it comes to IP and incorporation. And also, it's an equity and investment opportunity, especially like when accelerators or venture capitalists such as myself are hosting this. And then, of course, the good old crown at the end of the day. The other question I get often is like, well, who should do this? I think squarely if you're in the low profitability and low growth rate because you just don't have traction yet, pitch competitions are a really viable source. What I would consider a mid-term sort of plan is something that you can leverage for the next 3 to 12 months. And it can, in fact, be some sort of a revenue stream. So you have to plan it like an opportunity and like a sales plan to basically time the sort of sequence. And again, as I mentioned, it's non-dilutive. It's just the same as grants. Now, if you are already raising funds, etc., likely pitch competitions are not going to give you as much lift unless it's hosted by a strategic organizer that helps you break into a category. Like, for example, if you eventually want to sell to Ford Motor Company, apply to their pitch competition because it's a great way to get that sort of entry. So again, you've got to look at the source and you have to look at the timing to see if, in fact, it helps with your business. Now, what to expect? This is a screenshot of me doing the South Summit pitch competition. This was a gentleman from Africa. He did extremely well. And it's just absolutely amazing and unifying when everybody around the globe can just connect and go through this sort of example. And I'll show you more about how the South Summit runs. But when you enter, expect the sort of directions and expectations that the submission should require. Plus, you will be given support opportunities or the ability to inquire for points of clarification from the organizer itself, because nobody can ever write or do everything perfectly. Also, you will be receiving confirmations and updates about the program along the way. Every time you submit something, look for that response email saying, yep, we got it, because that's really important. And if you don't receive those communications, stay on it, because perhaps there was a problem in submission. And so be proactive, because if you made all that commitment to build it, make sure you follow through that they actually received it. Also, similar to what we do, we offer mentoring and rehearsal opportunities. I was first inspired of this by the Swanson Impact Center, who actually got their finalists on stage a few days before the actual live event. So the finalists didn't freak out when they walked on the stage, had a podium, bright lights, and were mic'd. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, follow-up and feedback, super important. And this is, again, opportunity for ongoing connections. And so I'm going to show you what us as judges get. So this is from the South Summit. All of some like judging scorecards are very similar in structure, but I think the way they did this, I can easily get it onto a screenshot. But basically, the startups are literally ranked side by side. So yours is right next to the other ones. And then the categories are also displayed, and they always give us, as judges, what to look for in each of the category. And oftentimes it's a numeric value that we're permitted to do. In this instance, it was whole values. We can do half values. And the other thing that I want to take attention to, is in this big area up on top. They asked us to immediately write our feedback on the pluses and minuses so that it can be anonymously given back to the presenter so they know, instead of letting time wait, etc. And this is why judging is like just so darn helpful. The other aspect is when you fill out that entry form and when you hand your competition in, or your pitch deck in, it really is side by side compared. Here's an example that the South Summit did everything in a PDF format. It was obviously 3-page, and everything had to be given in their set format so that I can literally look at the 5 submissions and compare which ones were experiencing better growth, better traction, based on the criteria that they had us judging on. Same thing goes with pitch decks, and same thing goes with demo videos. Now, another question that I want to ask is like how to enter. My suggestion is making a calendar. How do you make the calendar? Start Googling. And it's really easy to start sequencing the calendar. Oftentimes season kicks off in January, it cools down in summer, and then it picks up right now during the rest of the year, and then simmers down after October. So there feels like to be 2 waves, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's when all pitch competitions happen. It's just what I've seen over the amount of time. The immediate thing that you need to do is if you're qualified or disqualified, because if you're disqualified, cross it off. And then the first step is submitting your information on the entry form. Make sure you know what you submit. For instance, what is the email address that they're contacting you with? Don't put in a second one, only do one, because that's where information can get crossed out, especially because pitch competitions are organized by CRM systems. And so the data that goes in needs to match the data that comes out. And then oftentimes office hours or support meetings are available. Attend them, get some insight, meet the people, create those connections, and then watch videos. Like there's oftentimes previous final videos, etc. So you can get a sense and a feel as to what they're looking for. And do all of this before you start submitting final material. And then of course, research who's judging, research the organizers, figure out more about the program, and perhaps pontificate as to why are they doing it, because that can help in the fact that you build a stronger message. And of course, pay attention, like whitelist the email source for the organizer, because the worst thing is if stuff winds up in trash, and it's an important communication. The other aspect that not many people talk about is that you only have 1 year to really enter and win as many pitch competitions as possible. If you do it for multiple years, it's not a good sign because it says that now you can't gear out of pitch competitions and gear into business. And so if you're going to do this, commit, allocate that time, make it a plan. Like I said before, run it like a sales event. Now, here are some tips. Are you qualified to enter? Figure out what the limitations are, the timings are, because that should just immediately let you know if you should do it or not. Then also pick a category that you're entering and know the competition purpose. These 2 points are really important because it's going to help influence your theme and your narrative as to what you write and what you submit. Also, read the judging criteria and scoring. As you saw in the South Summit, they certainly had it broken down, and what was transparent to us as judges was absolutely communicated to the entries beforehand. And then deliver exactly what's asked for. Complete and confirm the delivery. We receive dare advances all the time, and it's just a shame because it really is a waste of time, especially for the judges who are putting in a considerably more amount of time than the submitters themselves. And then if the items are asked for, ensure consistency in the messaging itself. This is about storyline, and this is about your benefit of being persuasive and sharp and succinct. So just keep that storyline strong, tie it into the competition purpose, and away you go. Always be professional. You can be silly, you can be scary, serious, like, oh my gosh, but always remain professional, because honestly, all pitch competitions are recorded and are easily accessible. And if you ever want to do another venture again, it can actually come back and haunt you. So make sure no typos, nothing visually jarring, and that it's something that you'll be proud of in 5 years from now. But it doesn't mean not to be big, not to be bold, and not to be impactful. There are ways to storytell that just share and show your excitement and enthusiasm, as well as your leadership. And then, of course, all material should be factual. Oftentimes, judges don't have the opportunity to check the facts, but again, back to the recording, other people will, and when you least expect it. So make sure if you source things, put the source on it. Don't make it look like you've plagiarized. Be concise and be approachable. Just edit superfluous and keep your sources. I'd like to pause right now before we go into the Boom Startup Pitch Competition and see if you have any questions about pitch competitions and sort of suggestions and questions in that regards. If anybody has anything, you can jump off with mute or put it into the chat.
I have a question. What if you have never pitched in any kind of competition or anywhere at all, really? What do you recommend to start testing it out, or maybe to get started learning how to pitch?
That's a fantastic question. We want first timers. All pitch competitions want first timers, and we don't expect you to have revenue. And we have examples online. It's not very hard to Google or to look on YouTube to find, pitches, etc. And secondly, we provide templates, oftentimes, like I was mentioning before, with, follow the sort of structure. And if you get hung up, then attend those office hours, send over questions, because all of us organizations that host this want you to succeed and not be frustrated. The worst is to not try because you feel like you don't have experience. Give it a shot, but leverage all of those sort of on demand and in real time sort of resources. Is that helpful, Megan? No, that's a great question. Okay. As mentioned before, I am the managing director of Boom Startup. It's an accelerator here in Utah. However, we're 100% online. Occasionally, we'll do hybrid events where we'll meet in person, but then always have an online element. And we do that because we want to be an accessible accelerator program. The pitch competition is called PitchUp because we're Boom Startup. And we are doing our second one right now. And that's why I'm here to share it with you. Our theme or topic is to reward founders with big ideas. So just with that tagline alone, it should tell you a lot about our pitch competition. One, we want to work directly with the founder or someone on the founding team. And then two, we're looking for like those big ideas. We're looking for people who audaciously want to make an impact and improve the future. Our program actually has 7 categories that you can enter in, but you can only choose one of the 7 categories. These categories are really important because it diversifies the types of companies that can come in, like impact, health and wellness, productivity, humanity, financial, education, and energy are the 7 categories. There's an 8th award called Start Community Uplift Award. And that's actually a special award given by one of our sponsors, which is the Start Accelerator, who we also work with. So as I was mentioning before, we create alliances within the industries to basically excavate or accelerate participation. In Start Accelerator and Boom Startup, we do a lot of fun stuff together. These categories are, where we're looking for the big idea. We do not exclude companies because some entries are like, oh, I'd love to be in health and wellness and impact. We do ask for founders to only choose one category, but we won't exclude you if it's not matched according to our perspective at all. It's up to you to create a better theme, the better storyline in what you're submitting to match the category. So that's the one tell on that. Our criteria is that with this idea that you're pitching, you have not made more than $250,000 in the past 12 months, like total. So we're looking for people who have not made any money at all with this idea and that it's just still an idea on paper, to people that have like possibly sold a little bit, but just, haven't figured out the sort of rhythm. And the reason why is because Boom Startup Accelerator, we focus on pre-seed. Pre-seed is a stage in funding. It's like where angels and friends and family come in and give you direct investment into your company for like the very first time. And so it's a really early stage ideation component. And so our criteria of under $250,000 fits our pre-seed thesis as an entity. And then the other thing is that when people submit, we expect 3 things from them, not just one. And so you start off by completing an entry form, which tells us a little bit about you, your company, and how things have been going. But we also, after you submit that, ask for roughly a 90-second demo video, as well as a pitch deck or a presentation. And it's a very specific presentation that we're asking for. The timelines are very, very important. Yes, all materials need to be submitted by midnight, August 20th. But yes, today's the 17th, and you have plenty of time of pulling it together. Our finalists will be announced on August 27th, and we'll have a live virtual final event on Friday, September 3rd. So here's our process. As I mentioned before, there's 6 stages. The entry again is on the 20th. Our preliminary judges, which is a separate group of judges from the finalists, are going to go through all of the presentations, and they're going to conclude it on August 26th. Our finalist selection will happen on August 27th, and that's when I'm personally going to ask that the finalists confirm that they, in fact, are available for the live event on September 3rd. Once I get confirmation with the 21 finalists, then we're going to announce them. It's a really tricky step. It's kind of stressful and exhausting, but it's a really important piece, is this finalist selection. The final presentation is on September 3rd, and it will be virtually hosted, and it will also be broadcasted for any viewer to watch it as well. And then on September 3rd, it will conclude with the winner and the prizes allocated. So anybody watching and participating will know who wins. And then feedback will be given to the finalists between the week of September 7th and 16th. I also offer feedback for those who didn't make it as finalists, but that is actually a little unusual. But since we're an accelerator, we care. The one aspect that we've been hosting, we've actually hosted now 4 office hours. One aspect that everybody's asking us about is the slide sequence and the backup. Like, what am I doing? We're asking that the slides that are submitted follow this numeric order, like with the page numbers, and basically are sent over to us. We want them to be as professional as possible. Oops. But we give you a template that has suggestions as to what should be on each of these slides. And if we have time at the end, I'll share with you the template and we can go through a live Q&A. But basically, slide 9 needs to be about your go-to-market plan. And you communicate what you have as best of your ability. It doesn't mean that has to be bulletproof. It just means, uh-oh, are you guys still seeing it? Yeah, okay, thank you. It just means that you've given it thought. The reason why we're asking these slides is so that young entrepreneurs start framing what their innovation is into a business. And it is completely fine to not have a business yet, because you know what? You'll see it's not one of the judging criteria. But this is a great way to understand and be introduced to Boom Startup and what we care about as the organization, and for our future programs, which will lead startups to funding. Okay, the demo video is also a really fun yet intimidating component. People are like, oh my gosh, what if it's 93 seconds? You know, what if it's 49 seconds? We don't care. You know, we just want it to be roughly 90 seconds long, not, 7 minutes and very boring and dry. And we also want it to be amateur quality. And I have this hilarious example that I'll show you right now, but you can totally tell this person just put it together really quickly, just using iMovie, and it's fine enough. And you'll see that this is her husband and kids that are in it. Like, I love Peach, and I'll never forget her because of her demo video. But this exposes us as judges to you as a person and as a leader and as a persuader. And then let me see if I can share this real quick. Can you guys see the screen? Yeah, okay, great. I'm just gonna.
Tired of your headscarf or your bonnet coming off every night? I'm Peach, and I'm the inventor of sledge scarves. At sledgescarves.com, we designed our satin charmeuse scarves to stay on your head the entire night, no matter how much you toss and turn. And because I too have fallen victim to entrusting my not so trustworthy headscarf night after night for 25 years, I decided enough was enough. So I designed, tested, tweaked, and repeated for 2 years until I was finally able to get the patent pending sledge scarf to withstand the pulling force of up to 15 pounds. At sledgescarves.com, we focus on rebuilding and maintaining healthy hair longevity while preserving your hairstyles up to 95% longer than the rest of all those other slippery headscarves and bonnets. Sledge scarves can help you slay in your sleep and keep you looking as beautiful as you did the night before when you hit the pillow. Let sledge scarves make bedhead a thing of the past and 24-hour beauty a thing that lasts. Thank you.
Yeah, I just completely adore them. And as you can tell, it's something that would be equivalent, like seen on a, on a TikTok, what have you, but yet her energy, her ability to persuade, and, you know, just even her humor of how much better and superior her product is, it certainly forms such a strong, you know, impression. And that's how come I love the video aspect, because oftentimes this puts people and gives them an edge. And, you know, here's tips about Peach. One, she was reading her script. She didn't ad hoc this. And two, she took some time and did some video editing. Yeah, it might be really tricky to do another side-by-side comparison, but I think even if she didn't have that bowling ball segment, it still would have been equally compelling, because I was enamored by Peach and her little kids pulling on her husband's hair. Anyways, demo videos, super important. It's the way of the future, and it's certainly a great way to get a step ahead. Now, our judging criteria is that professionalism is really important. And what do we mean by professionalism? One, create a brand and show your brand on every slide. During one of the office hours that I had last week, the entrepreneur rolled through his deck asking for feedback. I was like, you know, you only have your logo and your company name on the first slide. All of the other slides, I don't know it's you. And he just had like one of those head banging moments of like, oh, be professional, be proud of your brand, you know, and make sure that there's no spelling mistakes and it's just, you know, sharp as heck. Traction. If you haven't sold anything, that's fine. You can find out other ways to communicate why you think this idea is so big. Some options can be using market data and market research. And that's just being smart with Google's. Other ways are by getting quotes from people who are supporting or advising you, or just anxious about, you know, you to actually create this idea. That's a fabulous sign of traction. The third sign is like if you've run polls, even on Twitter or on TikTok, and gotten responses or follows, etc., or website views, all of these aspects elicit traction. So don't think traction only means sales and customer names, because it certainly doesn't, not at this stage. And those traction also will help you feel energetic about your company and what you're doing. Viability. How long do you think this will absolutely last? There are some ideas that are presented that it feels much more of a project than it does a game changer. And so if there's a high viability that it can last for a long time, that's really important. Reach. If it's for a very small group, it's not going to be as interesting as if it's for a larger group. And so reach is basically how many people or how many entities, be it organizations, or how many acres in the globe this sort of idea can impact or improve. That sort of reach and the magnitude is really important. And then, of course, innovation. Are you coming up with an idea that's solving a problem different than what's been done before? The more innovative, the more different it is, then the more interesting it is. You know, we see a lot of innovations of like, well, we're just going to do something and just make it a little bit better than what the other people have been doing that are the market leaders. That's not innovative enough, not for pitch competitions. Pitch competitions, we want you to be like, yep, we're going to the moon. And so innovation and articulating how crazy it is actually is a good thing. Our final event, each of the categories will go in sequence. And then the 3 finalists in the category will go back to back to back. Then each of the finalists will be given 5 minutes, 3 minutes for a free form pitch, followed by a 2-minute Q&A. If you are a finalist, you do not have to restate what you submitted in your entry, because the judges have already reviewed it. This is where they get to meet you. They get to see how excited you are. You can do a product demo. You can pull a customer or somebody famous on the screen. You can play a video. We don't care, but just make it impactful and memorable. Following that 3 minute, the judges will do Q-minutes Q&A, where it's just like rapid fire, not looking for long answers, just looking for precision and the ability to answer honestly. And also, everybody's judged on the same criteria that was done in the prelim. And then at the very end of the event, right before we close, we'll announce all of the winners. And, you know, if you do make it to finals, great. If you don't, great as well. Watch it on Vimeo, because it's a great experience for you to see a live pitch competition in action. Of course, if you are a finalist, please encourage your family and friends to watch you, because it's a really cool exposure. And then before I go into Boom Startup, well, let me just do this real quick. We are an accelerator. We are online. We are always looking for the do-it-yourself entrepreneurs who want to focus and fix their businesses. And we're able to do that because we have an online platform, as well as a really viable community and other tools that just really get people ready for funding. We serve people around the globe. We serve and help companies in various industries. And really, like 90% of our outcomes is really creating learning experiences for businesses to create the revenue sources, to optimize the business spends and their go-to-market execution. But we also really focus on education around funding. And, you know, we're also a backer of, like, yeah, you built your business. And we also do help companies fund, but only a small sliver, versus other accelerators where they fund everybody in it. We only fund a small portion of people. We do offer 4 programs. This is, of course, our PitchUp program. We have 3 others as well. And what I wanted to do with the remaining time real quick is to walk through the slide sequence in the backup, unless there's any questions coming in that I can answer. Okay, well, I'll do this real quick. When you sign up and register for the PitchUp 2 competition, you will be asked to download our material. There are 3 things inside that zip folder. This is one of it, and this is probably the most critical, because it tells you what your pitch deck should look like. And there's all this information about it, you know, and just read it at your leisure. But the introduction slide, you know, we give you suggestions as to what it can communicate. You don't have to do it all, but you can leverage this if you've never built a deck before. After the introduction slide, we have the big problem and urgency. And again, you don't have to do everything that we're saying, but the big problem slide is really about, like, making it hurt. Why is the problem so big? And who is it impacting that judges are like, whoa, this is real. Again, remember, we're looking for people with big ideas, right? And wanting to change the future. So this actually gets that tempo going. That gets your heart beating. And after that, we go into a solution, vision, impact slide. We do not have a product slide on in the deck, because you know what? That's kind of what your demo video is about. This is about, oh yeah, we're going to do this because this is really cool and important and big. Again, you don't need to follow all of these bullets, but these are suggestions as to what to put on it. Innovation, value, and differentiation. This goes back to what we were saying before, how innovative is it? And so you can have fun with this by, you know, showing how one aspect of this is a complete breakthrough and is so opportunistic. There's an addressable market slide. This is a slide that I get most of the questions on, is like, well, how do you do an addressable market? Well, first off, definitely check out this article link, because it really gives you the map, or just attend our office hours that we have tomorrow morning, as well as Thursday morning. And the TAM, SAM, SUM are acronyms to basically show how big of a reach of a market that your innovation is going after. That's why it's so important, like, to not blow off the slide. This is an important slide. And don't worry, there's mechanics behind it, and we'll get you through it. Traction and growth, like I mentioned before, you don't have to have customers, but like if there's adoption rates, if there's visitors on websites, yeah, absolutely list them. The competition itself, like you are competing against other entities. Who are those entities and how are you going to beat them? And it could be by price, it could be based on delivery, it could be of various sort of reasons, but competition is an important slide to start thinking about. Business model is how do you make money? And it can be communicated such as like, I am the Airbnb for the, I don't know, roller skate rink area. I don't know, I'm making stuff up. But, you can make it as a synonym where you can use an example of like, we're applying Amazon, but to blah, blah, blah. Or it could be like direct to consumer sales, e-commerce distribution. And so you just got to tell us how you're going to make money. Then also the go-to-market plan. Well, you already told us who the addressable segment is and how you're going to make money. Well, how are you going to launch this if you can? And some people don't really know this yet, and that's totally, totally fine. It could be easy as, or simple as like, I'm going to start a social media campaign and get some grassroots following and then send them over to a website. And that is 100% adequate, especially for this early ideation stage. We also have financials, and we do ask people to project 5 years out. We know it's not true, but it's the ability of doing soft math of like, what do you expect the sales to be? And it's okay if these numbers are not based on anything, because it just gets you in the routine of thinking about things financially, even if it's just a complete swag. Like, totally fine to guess on this for a pitch competition. We're not going to backtrack and force you into this sort of data. And then lastly, the team. Now, I've been asked, well, it's just me. Then just write about me and tell us about yourself as to like, why do you have this vision? Why are you a great solopreneur? What have you done in the past experientially, or who's advising you to help you out and make it happen? Totally fine. You don't get dinged if you don't have a lot of names or faces on this. Again, that's not our judging criteria, but it does help you start thinking about key hires going forward in the future. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, the ask, very important. No, put it out there if you'd like some financial ask. Put it out there if you'd like to win the competition because you'd use the $1,000 for this or for that. Also, you can do some soft asks, which are like, if you are in the audience and you use this product, can you contact me for a product survey? It's fantastic ways of getting support because it's your time that you're on the platform. So never back off of having an ask. And then of course we have backup slides. Now, I know I moved real quick, and I want you to know that not only is this being recorded, but we do again have open office hours at 9 a.m. tomorrow and Thursday, just to help out get you across the finish line. You should be encouraged, not discouraged. And you should realize that once you get this done, then it's in fact easily to tailor it for future competitions and use it because you've got that baseline done. So I strongly encourage you to apply, to put together, your pitch deck, because all of these slides are very fundamental that you can cross use in future. And same thing goes with your product video. Like, I know Peach has probably used that video about the headscarf in many instances as well. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. And if you have any questions, let's just shoot them. All right. No questions.
I have one.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting to listen to you talk about Peach and her particular product example, because so often pitches with investors as the audience or judges are looking for investments with high rates of return. So when it's a scarf, you're not thinking biotech. So I think it's awesome that you guys will help people who are not necessarily in the tech world. Does that work realistically?
Yeah, so let's as I mentioned before, you have to look at like who's the organizer and what are their intentions.
Right.
And so if I can just share my screen again, like who hosts pitch competitions. We partially invest out of all of the group. Most of the people will interact with BoomStartup Accelerator as an education source.
Right.
And as to build the right fundamentals. We have, for example, programs about financial literacy and, about product market fit, etc. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you're literate or you have a product fit that you will get funding. Like there's a disconnect.
Right.
And so because of how we're a unique sort of in that category of investors, like that's how come we encourage people like Peach to apply to this sort of event, because it's certainly honing her experience and broadening it. Now, I do know where she's from, and it's a rural area of Georgia. And there are often sort of Georgia or state-led sort of programs.
Right.
I think I showed photos of actual pitch competitions that I did with the Utah Economic and Energy Summit.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also to encourage more Utah native sort of growth. So that's like she could easily take her pitch competition and then apply it to a local municipality.
Right. How much does it cost entrepreneurs to receive this service from you?
None, nothing. It's free. Great question.
The whole thing is free.
Yeah. Yeah. Our sponsors pay for it.
Okay.
And so that's why sponsors are so critically important. Not only are they judging, but they're paying for all of the cash giveaways, the services and everything.
The education.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great.
Yeah, it's a very interesting business model. Great question.
Do you need people? Because I could think of lots.
Yes, in fact, we do. And I mean, this is my cry to get as many people to enter into the competition in the next 3 days. It's, it's such a great opportunity for them to get that sort of feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Please do.
Hey Tara, can you see me?
Yes, good to see you.
Yeah. So I watched. This is great. This is fantastic. This is happening right now because I've been working on it all week. But I watched all of last year's videos and like Spira and Pedal Cell and stuff, and they kind of demotivated me because they seemed so much more advanced than where I'm at. Because like Spira is working with algae producers across the country, and Pedal Cell already has sales and stuff, so it kind of seemed like it wasn't for the small guy. Is that true or not true at all?
It's not true, and I'm sorry that it demotivated you. So for Pedal Cell, that was in the energy quadrant, and I think you could see the differentiation of their thoughtfulness and their professionalism compared to the other one. Spira, in fact, had a pretty big impact, but still not very successful in their business. They're certainly still in the early stage. I think, the one thing I've learned in my life is comparison is the thief of joy. And so, don't allow comparing what you've seen in the past determine if you're going to try or not try. They're
Right.
also not in the competition, this round, and you don't know who you're going to be competing against.
Yeah, definitely.
So don't be discouraged at all, but just know that variance,
Right. And come out with confidence, because they just seemed so confident, and that could have just been what it was. Their their presentation was excellent.
Well, and you know what, Scott? It's rehearsal.
Right.
The cool thing about, the demo video, you only have to script around 2 minutes, a minute and a half, 2 minutes right now. When you go live, you're going to script it, and then you're going to practice the heck out of it. And
Right.
in fact, if you make it as a finalist, Boom Startup mentors will have dedicated time where you can pitch to them several times over the course of like 20 minutes and get that sort of one-on-one feedback. I mean,
Okay.
our mentor community is really jazzed to contribute to the finalists.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
One more question on that one then. Was their presentations were kind of different than the format that you guys
Yes.
showed? And was that like the second round pitch or something? Or
Yes, and that's free form. So
Okay.
you do what you think is the most compelling. We only have to structure the entries for the prelim so that everybody is judging on the same points, but it's not publicly shown. Scott, to that point, and I should have mentioned this earlier, like the financial data, you don't have to share that publicly,
Okay.
right? Like that's super private. But we just want to see if you have that capability as a leader to, you know, like push yourself to like, oh yeah, this is what we want to look like in 5 years.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not like an investor pitch. You know, you're not going in front of Tamarack of like, oh yeah, now you get, you know, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, I just see Tim Cooley all in there, so you never know if,
Well, so great question. Tim Cooley is one of our mentors. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
Okay.
But he's also the author of the complete pitch deck guide.
Right.
And he is like Mr. Pitch. He's also offering a training session actually right after this event is over as well, for people who really want to go into a deep dive. But that's just inherently who he is. But you're not pitching to Park City Angels. You're not submitting. Park City Angels has nothing to do with us.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, thank you.
And then I saw you sent something in the chat, but I didn't read it.
Oh yeah, it was just for the link to the office hours, but
yeah, let me get that for you. And it would be great to have you come. So what's been happening is that people join, and it's great because the more the merrier sort of a thing. We had a lively conversation on Friday. And the three entrepreneurs started to like also jump in and help each other out because everybody's from different categories, more likely than not.
Mm-hmm.
There's the link. And so, yeah, it was really fun and cool. And like I was like, why am I even here? Because they were starting to give each other help. It was so fun. Did you get it?
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome. And then Elizabeth asked, what's my relationship with Start? And we cross over events. Start is paying $250 in cash as well as $1,000 in Start services, like helping with brand and website and all that such for the Community Uplift Award. So yeah, there are also Shakayla Smith is one of the judges, the finalist judges, who will pick the Start Community Uplift winner out of the 21 finalists. So you don't need to win a category to possibly win the Start. The Start is someone that they'll pick independent as to how the other judges rank. So Elizabeth, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious if you could speak a little bit more. I think I'm kind of new to this whole what you do and all of this and what Start is exactly. So I was just kind of wondering if you could elaborate on that just a little bit more. Like, is BoomStartup, it's totally separate from Start? And yes, okay.
Yeah, and we just get along. It's like an alliance. We also work with RevRoad. RevRoad has their pitch competition going on right now. And in fact, I'm a finalist judge. And that's how come I'm doing this presentation of like, not just about Boom's present pitch competition, but all pitch competitions. Like I'm trying to encourage you to get involved with all of us, because that's the cool thing about accelerators is that we all hop around. Also, Elizabeth, Rehabilitation Health is a venture community that focuses on health and wellness, and they're sponsoring our health and wellness category, and they're giving like $5,000 to the winner in additional services and such. It's crazy. So, I mean, we all just kind of, we're separate entities, but we all band together to strengthen the pot. And, you know, START appreciates me simplifying like the whole process for them, you know, as the organizer, and that's why they sponsor it.
Yeah, I gotta say the community is pretty awesome. I met with Amy Caldwell 2 weeks ago, and then I meet up with Shay pretty often just to talk about all this stuff. And it's pretty cool how many resources there are for people that want it.
Mhm.
Well, and that's how come like we do what we can, like with UVU, right? You know, it's just important to keep it going, because really 65% of our economy are small businesses and startups, right? So it's important. Thank you guys so much. Any other questions I can answer? Awesome. Thank you. Everyone
you
have a
so
good
much.
one.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Nice job. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Tara.
Bye.